if the student is struggling with a section of something, they were just working on from technical skills, the etudes in the back of the technical skills books. And we were in level 6 of the technical skills in this etude. There was just a tough passage that the student was struggling with. So I had her do what my teacher would have me do. And so what he would have me do is find the tempo where I can play it with no issue, even if that is 16th note equals 40. I mean, I know that sounds unreal, but I had an organ teacher too who taught me to play a piece from 16th note equals 40 and just inch up over the course of 8 weeks at Interlaken. And it was so profound.
Hey there, I'm Rachel Ehring, and you're listening to the Top Music Piano Podcast. Get inspired as we discuss creative resources, trends in piano pedagogy, ways to grow your income and streamline your studio, and new ways to engage your students each week. If you are a teacher who wants to go beyond the method books to create an innovative studio that fosters lifelong music makers, you've come to the right place. Hello, piano teachers. Welcome to the Top Music Piano Podcast. I am so glad that you're here today, and I think you're going to love this conversation. I honestly didn't know a lot about my guest, Elaina, when we started this interview, but I could have talked to her for hours. She is so creative, so multi-talented, and a wealth of knowledge on piano pedagogy. This is one of those episodes where we didn't really stick to one specific topic, but I would say the overarching theme of the episode is creativity in the piano studio. So we touched on repertoire, we talked about using fun things in the studio with young students, we talked about mindfulness and performance anxiety, and I'm sure there were a few other things too. In case you couldn't tell, I am recording this intro after I've already done the interview. And after the interview, I think I'm going to need to re-listen to this episode because there were so many gold nugget ideas in it that I want to remember and use in my own teaching. So I'll stop talking about how great it was and let you hear from my guest. Here's a little bit about Elaina before we dive in. Elaina Burns is an active pianist, chamber musician, and nationally certified teacher based in Pearl River, New York. Burns is a pianist for Parlando, a professional chamber orchestra in New York City, and she performs regularly with Spanish dancer and teaching artist Ana de la Paz. Burns is founder and director of Resonance Mind Body Music, a piano studio dedicated to the creative and healing arts, where she encourages students to develop mind-body awareness in order to improve their artistry, musicianship, and overall well-being. She is always eager to discuss pedagogy, wellness, and all aspects of music. Burns holds a doctoral degree in piano performance and pedagogy from the University of Oklahoma. Here's my interview with Elaina. Hi, Elaina. Welcome to the show. Would you mind introducing yourself and just tell us a little bit about what you do?
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. I am a pianist and teacher. I live north of New York City, about 20 miles north. And I'm also an organist at a church, and I teach there as well. I get to use that teaching space. I have a full studio right now, and I also play with the Parlando Chamber Orchestra in the city. And I play solo performances on library series around here. We have a lot of really nice libraries with amazing pianos. And I also play with a Spanish dancer and Hispanic culture arts. So that's really fun. We put on programs together in the community. And I serve on many boards and committees. I am on the Independent Piano Teachers Committee for NCKP. I'm also vice president of membership for New York MTNA. And then I'm president of the Rockland County Music Teachers Guild, just recently elected to that.
Wow, you do a lot. Oh my goodness. I could ask you about so many things that you just mentioned. But one thing you didn't mention is that you also teach some yoga, right? Would you like to share about that?
That's true. Yes. Okay. So I did not mention that. So I have taught yoga and piano integrated in the past. And lately I've been doing more like alignment and awareness. So that is a really good question because I practice yoga and I've been practicing for over 25 years now. And I like how piano is a practice and yoga is a practice and it's something that you develop throughout your life and you can continue to learn in both areas. Yeah, so that is something I do as well.
Yeah, so we're actually going to talk about a few things today. We're going to talk a little about yoga and how it incorporates with music. And then I want to talk a little bit about repertoire. At Top Music, we're doing a repertoire revamp is the topic for the month. So we're going to talk a little bit about repertoire and supplemental repertoire And we'll see what else we end up talking about. Well, there'll probably be some other things in the mix as well. But let's start with yoga, since we were just talking about that. Are you teaching yoga, or is it more just a personal practice that you've done yourself?
For right now, I am teaching a few small adult classes, but I also just mostly practice myself. And I've done it in the past where I did a couple of classes with students, but I've really shifted into just teaching them awareness and alignment more.
And how do you feel like your yoga practice has changed the way you approach the piano?
Oh my gosh, so much. My first yoga class was over 25 years ago, and I held a lot of tension in my body that I wasn't even really aware of. And so now I find that just with a simple breath, I can release any of my tension in my arm. But at the time, I just wasn't able to access that. If we have like a shoulder too high or a muscle that's just tensing. I've started in my freshman year of college, and I just took a class at the local gym there. And then since then went off and on for a while. Like I haven't been like an avid practicer that whole time. But I took a prenatal yoga class as well when I was pregnant with my son. And so that was 15 years ago. And then I took a yoga teacher training when I lived in Iowa. So that was really wonderful. I completed my 200-hour certification back then and in 2015. And since then, I have really done a lot of practice myself and then just sort of peppered in ideas into my teaching studio. And so sometimes it's something that for me is a yogic practice, but for the student might just be, okay, now I have to like take a breath and lift my arm, or, just being more aware of each of the muscles. And I do that throughout, with the youngest students, we'll do a little song where we're singing, firming up our fingertips and butterfly wrists. And we sort of joke about swinging the elbows and rolling our shoulders. And so we'll do some of those little activities, which for me have a yogic element, but for the kids, it's probably just like a little game of moving our arms and fingers.
Yeah. Can you share a little more in depth about how your yoga practice informs your teaching, and maybe with different ages, and not just the body, but maybe some of the mindfulness and awareness as well?
Yes, absolutely. So have you ever read The Perfect Wrong Note by William Westney?
I haven't.
It's such a great book. I really highly recommend it. And it's not officially, a yoga or mindfulness book, I wouldn't say, but there's so much mindfulness in it where he talks about like leaping to the next note and landing and having no judgment. And so I find that to be really helpful with students. They, sometimes we can be very critical of our own playing. And so I try to bring mindfulness and awareness into that so that they, are able to approach their playing with less criticism. And so with the youngest students, we'll play some games where we're just like landing and dropping, and there's a lot of laughter and playfulness. With older students, when they're performing or preparing to perform, I will have them do some practice performances. And I try to tell them, to continue moving forward. Of course, we can't go back and fix things. So there's a lot of, sessions on that too, where we're talking about, practice and versus performance, and how we have to, work on our playing in between. Sometimes when we're practicing, we of course have to go back and fix things, but when we're performing, we can't do that. I try to bring mindfulness and awareness into that, where, sometimes I'll say to the student, I forget what first teacher told me this, but thank your first mistake. So we'll say, thank your first mistake, because when you're performing and you have so much pressure on yourself to make it perfect, and then you do inevitably somewhere something isn't as perfect as you had hoped, just thank that moment and move forward. And that can be really helpful, I think, to students to just have to move on. We can't be going backwards and trying to fix things. And I'll also tell them that the audience will forgive you the moment you forgive yourself. So if you make a mistake and you just forgive yourself for it and move on, you're able to make the next phrase that much more beautiful and that much more meaningful. And so I'll tell them to, focus in on a specific element. After, if there's a little mistake that happens, can you make the next phrase that much more expressive? Can you really dive in and hone in on your dynamics for the next phrase, or hone in on your articulation? From my perspective, I think it's bringing yoga into that and bringing, awareness and mindfulness into that is helping you to direct your focus onto that element of your playing.
I love that so much, like reframing our mistakes. Because when you were talking about the wrong notebook, I was thinking, yeah, that's okay in practice to accept our wrong notes. But what about performance? But then you went there and you talked about how we can accept our mistakes in performance as well.
And it can be challenging, yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't come naturally to students. Like we have to teach them these things. I mean, even myself, I still, when I mess up in a performance, that's all I can think about for probably the next 7 days, And
I think that helps them to know that we struggle too, because probably see us as, these, incredible performers or something. And for us, we're like, oh my gosh, I wish I had done X, Y, or Z. And there's actually a funny cellist who does some reels about that online. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. I'm sorry. But he will do like just a silly video about what it feels like to be a musician after a performance and like the crash, from wishing you had done this or that. And so I think if we let them know that that happens to us too, and that we're learning, how to get through that too, even today, I think that's really helpful, because there were times where I was really committed to never performing again. And I'm so grateful that I didn't do that, because I've had so many great experiences since then. In the past 20 years, I feel like when I was in school, it was very, very critical, and it was so hard to get me out of my head. And now I'm still critical, but I'm okay with, going and playing again. Yeah, I'm just really grateful to be a musician and a teacher. And I hope that they can, not be in that state where they're just like, oh, I don't ever want to do this again. So I guess I hope that that's what they get out of it.
Yeah, it reminded me of our last recital in the conservatory that I run. It was mostly student performers, or all student performers, but I was accompanying one of the singers, and I was playing from my iPad and I couldn't get the page turned. And so I was like, swipe. And then of course it does 2 pages. And so I'm trying to go back. And in the meantime, I'm like missing a whole bunch of notes. And I was like, at this point in my career, I could just kind of let it go. Like those things happen. But after the recital, one of my little piano students, I could tell she was a little disappointed with her performance. And so we were talking about it. And I said, hey, did you see that I made mistakes too? And she kind of smiled and nodded. And so I was able to use it like, hey, you know what? I didn't do great either. I'm a little disappointed, but we got up there and we were brave and we performed. So I think letting them see that makes us human, right?
Definitely. And it shows them that, this is something that we continue to do for our whole lives, and that it's just something that, we take the good with the bad. And, that it's definitely something that we're developing too, and showing them that grace, I think. Do
you have any, I call them quick wins, but any tips of mindfulness exercises to help with performance anxiety, going into a performance?
So one thing that I like to do is there's, I'm probably not pronouncing his name correctly, but Eckhart Tolle, have you heard of him?
I have, but I don't know how to say his name either.
Yeah. So there we are. So he's been quoted as saying, one conscious breath in and out is a meditation. So helping them to get that one breath can really be a start of helping to calm their performance anxiety, and also letting them know that, when you take a breath, it does calm your nervous system. So actively breathing with them, not just telling them to breathe, but breath in and a breath out. And sometimes that can help. I'll also say, can you take a breath and release your elbow? And so that will allow their arm to go up higher into into higher range and play a trill or a turn or something that just allows them to have that awareness while they're performing or while they're practicing. So that's just something very simple, like take a breath and. So can you take a breath and, let your shoulders fall? Can you take a breath and lift your arms up and let them fall again? And so having an active, movement to do with the breath can be helpful, I think. And so I don't know if that answers the question exactly, but.
Yeah, I love that. And I was thinking, even with my son, sometimes I'm like, okay, let's take a big breath right now because he's getting worked up or something. But taking a breath and doing something, I really like that. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. And there's something, I can't remember the exact quote, but something about movement allowing, an emotion to move through you. So like motion and emotion being if you're starting to feel that nervousness, letting yourself move your body and move the emotion through, and really releasing. Like when I'm trying to play something that has like a big, huge, I don't know, powerful chord, I'll try to take a breath and then let myself fall into the keys. And I have this visual that I'm just sort of like getting aware of now, actually, that it's as if the energy is going out of me through the piano, out to the audience, back, their energy comes back to me. So there's just very beautiful synergy in that. So I try to, maybe not in those words exactly for the little ones, but some of the kids can really relate to that. And I try to make sure too that when they're finishing and releasing a chord at the end of a piece, is it a powerful piece? Does it have a big, huge ending where we're going to like have a trampoline sort of sensation? Or is it more gentle and soft? And then how will we release the hands from the keys? So there's a lot of that artistic motion and movement in our performance preparation as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So we're going to transition just a little because I know you are going to be presenting in a couple of weeks at the NCKP conference, which I will also be attending. So I'm excited for us to meet in person. So I read in the program that you're presenting on empowering students. Can you tell me a little of what that means and maybe just give us a sneak preview of what you're going to be presenting on?
Yes, definitely. So I'm really looking forward to NCKP. I love learning so much there. Every time I've attended, I've learned something, and it's just great to be with all these wonderful teachers and colleagues and friends. I'm planning to share some teaching strategies that can empower students, as well as a few projects that we're currently doing. And then also, so I don't know if you want me to talk about the teaching strategies first or the projects or both, or either way.
You can give us, either way. Just give us a little sneak peek.
Sometimes it's funny with teaching strategies. I feel like, does everybody already know this? But if you already know it, then you feel like, oh, that's great. Like I feel, restored in what I'm doing. Like I'm sort of affirmed in doing that strategy too. And if you don't know it, then it's nice to be able to have a new one to use with your students. So I'll share a couple of those. One, just recently, I was working with a student. We use this method a lot. It's a metronome practice method, where if the student is struggling with a section of something, like they were just working on from technical skills, the etudes in the back of the technical skills books that Jane McGraw has edited. And we were in level 6 of the technical skills in this etude. And there was just a tough passage that the student was struggling with. So I had her do what my teacher would have me do, Ed Gates at OU. He was a wonderful teacher for me and for so many people. And so what he would have me do is find the tempo where I can play it with no issue, even if that is 16th note equals 40. I mean, I know that sounds unreal, but I had an organ teacher too who taught me to play a piece from 16th note equals 40 and just inch up over the course of 8 weeks at Interlaken. And it was so profound. I mean, it's one of the best. I actually have the music framed on my wall. And I sometimes bring that out and I show the kids, like, look, on this date, I could play this at 16th note equals 40. And on this date, I could play it at 16th note equals 82. And, what a concept. And they're just like in awe. They're like, I can't believe you would play it so slowly. But the long story short, with this metronome practice, we find the tempo that actually works. Not the tempo that they want, not the performance tempo, the tempo that actually works. And then we put it on the metronome and say, okay, it actually works at 52. What do you want it to sound like? Like, could you sing it? Do you want me to play it? Where do we want this to go? Is it andante? Is it allegro? Is it presto? So then we'll find the tempo that it needs to be. And then we know, okay, at least we know, it's 52 now. We want it to be 126 or whatever, so then we will just inch our way up. Okay, we're playing it at 52. Play it. Now we'll play it at 56. And we play it. Now we'll play it at 60, and we'll move up usually by 4s. But it doesn't, a lot of digital metronomes, you can go a click or 2 at a time. So that strategy I have found to be immensely helpful. And we won't go more than like 12 or 16 clicks in a sitting, but we will actively do it in the lesson. Like I won't just say, go home and practice this, get it from 52 to 126. Like we do the thing in the lesson. Yeah. And then that way they go home, they feel like, okay, I've done it. And then I watch them do it. And I'm like, okay, I know they can do it this way. If they need me to, I'll map it out. And I'll say, okay, on Tuesday, you're going to do it these tempos. And on Wednesday, these, and Thursday. And so, but usually they can just find their own way with that. So have you used that strategy for metronome practice strategy? I mean, I've probably
I've used it for for myself, like just inching, like you start at the tempo where you can successfully do it, and then you just inch up. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I find it so helpful in my own playing. And so I share that with my students. And then I'll also make sure that it's a short segment. We won't do an entire piece, 16 or 32 measures that way. We'll just do maybe 2 measures plus the downbeat of the next so that we get that transition down. So that's one strategy I'm hoping to share effectively. Another one that I do is a page number practice example. So this one is for students that are doing longer pieces, like if they're doing a 16-page choral accompaniment, I'll have them take a sheet of paper and on the left side of the page, write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way down to 16. And then we do check marks. So we'll say, like, I'll have them play page 1 and I'll say, okay, how's page 1? Do you think it's a check plus, or check minus? How hard is it for you? Can you do it? Are you playing at tempo? And we'll go through the whole piece this way and see where the really tough pages are. Because sometimes a student will have 16 pages and they'll just be completely overwhelmed and they don't know where to start. And they'll say, I've been practicing and I'm just not getting better. And I find that that's because they haven't pinpointed the focus areas. So we'll really zoom in and say, okay, what are the sections that need attention? Which ones are going to be just fine? And then we work specifically on those pages. Once we get there, I'll also use timers. So if we say, okay, pages 6 and 10 were my toughest pages, I'll set a timer for 5 minutes and we'll work on page 6. We won't leave it. We'll just say, okay, we're staying on this page, we're working on it, we're getting this phrase, we're getting this, that's where I'll also bring in like take a breath and release your arm. Can you go to this next note? Can you leap and land? All these different strategies that we'll use to really effectively practice the page. And then at the end of the timer, we'll reassess. I'll say, okay, does this page need 2 or 3 more minutes? Does it need 5 more minutes? Do we want to move on to page 10 and come back to page 6? So we'll use these different methods to really hone in on a tough spot and make sure that it happens. And I notice in the lesson, we have a 30 or 45 minute or 1 hour lesson, depending on my student. And they can definitely get a lot done in that time. And then they're empowered, because that takes them home and saying, wow, I have a 45-minute lesson that is, 9 5-minute segments. So when I'm practicing at home, how am I going to use those 5-minute segments to effectively play the piece? So those are some of the strategies. In terms of projects that we're doing, and projects I'm going to share in this Empowered Piano Student session, is one of the projects is doing a vision board. So I'm really excited about this one. This is actually really new to my studio. It was just something that I've thought about over the years, but never put down on paper. And so it's the idea of you have a student who comes to you and they really would love to play Mozart's K545, or they'd really love to play Rondo alla Turca. And they're not quite there yet, but they totally have the opportunity to get there in the future. So I have a student right now that I'm going to have her make this vision board before I go to NCKP. And she's been really excited about it because K545 is like her dream piece. So we're taking the steps to get there. So it's like, okay, we're going to take a picture of a passage of it, print that out, put it on the board. And then I'll teach her, okay, these are the steps you have to take to get there, like the Clementi sonatinas or Kuhlau. So then I'm playing these pieces for her and we're going to choose which one do you want to be your stepping stone toward the Mozart. And then we'll put a little incipit of that on the vision board as well. And so right now we're doing like some Duncombe sonatinas and Latour from Masterwork Classics Level 3. And so we're taking those stepping stones to get there. And it's going to be a several-year project, but it's something to look forward to and to say, instead of saying, no, you're just not ready to play the Mozart yet, let's do this first. It's a visual for them. And it's a way of saying, yes, I will play this piece. I'm excited about it. And, these are the steps I'm going to take to get there. And these are the technical skills I'm going to be acquiring along the way and musical skills. It's just really exciting to see them. And I have to say, too, I'm so grateful to my teachers at OU and at CU for really giving me this concept of, working through intermediate literature. With all my teachers that I had were really incredibly powerful to giving me these kinds of ideas and this training. I used what I worked on in my doctorate with Jane McGraw and with Barbara Fast and Ed Gates and Zhang Wenham. I used what I learned there literally every day. And so And also, of course, with CU with Alejandro Kamaski and Andrew Cooper-Stack, that all the things that I learned from them, I'm actively implementing in my teaching. So it's just a real source of gratitude that I have for them. So those are some of the projects I'm going to do. If you want, I can tell you about one more.
Sure. I am so excited about all of these. I'm definitely coming to your session in a couple of weeks. This is great.
There. Thank you so much. I'm really excited about it. It's one of those things where, you get the idea and you say, well, how am I going to get this idea out? So
yeah. Like once you're accepted to speak, you're like, oh no, now I have to put together the presentation, right?
Exactly. So it's been really a labor of love, to do it. And just to think about like the things that I take from sessions. So I'm trying to think, how do I organize it in such a way that I can make sure that that's something valuable, that you can take home and you feel like you can put this to work right away. And so what I'm hoping to do is have it be a little bit interactive as well and let people have some time to think and time to discuss and maybe write down some of the names of their own students even on the handout. So they say, oh, this would be great for, this student, or this would be great. So I'm hoping to organize it that way. But like I said, it's still kind of coming together. It's like when you have a big piece that you want to play and you're like, oh, wow, how am I going to make this happen? But you find a way and you organize it. And so, yeah, so this last little project is that I'm going to put on there on the handout and talk about in the session is the idea of a listening lesson. So I find that, I know I haven't been listening much today, just talking, but listening is really powerful for our students and for ourselves as teachers. And yoga and mindfulness and awareness, these all help me to become a better listener too. And so a listening lesson doesn't have to be a whole lesson. It might be like a portion of a lesson. But what we'll do is we will listen specifically for certain things. So if I have a student that's learning Bach invention, we will listen to a recording of it and listen for articulation. And we'll listen to many recordings and say, well, how does this person articulate this passage? Can you mark the slurs and the staccato, and find each spot where you hear a difference in articulation? We might even do this with colored pencil or highlighters, and we could have, our first listening through could be, one color, and this is where the slurs and staccati are, and then this is, we would do it another color and listen to other players. It's also really effective for when you're having a student work on a fugue, because you can take the subject of the fugue and listen to how the person articulates it, and then listen to the subject as it reappears and reappears and reappears. Because usually they will actually articulate it in the same way, and then the student can really hone in on that one element. So a listening lesson is really helpful for that purpose. I'll also have them listen specifically for dynamics. So can you hone in on the dynamics? How is this person expressing this passage? Where are the highs and lows? We'll listen for tempo changes, for color, for character, for all these different elements. Then I'll have them practice for a few weeks down the road, and then we'll record them and say, okay, now let's listen to your articulation. How did you express it? Did it come out the way you had hoped? And again, different ages will, this will apply differently for different ages and levels, but it can be a really powerful tool. And I try to use recording quite a bit. Even if a student's preparing for a performance, we'll record the whole thing, and then we'll have a lesson based on what we just heard. So we'll play the exposition on their recording, mark things in their score, have them work on it, like press pause, and then continue the recording, say, okay, well, let's hear the development. How did this go? And that's just a really great tool, being able to record at any moment. So,
yeah, the thing I really appreciate about what you're talking about is teaching students how to do these things, actually doing them in the lesson rather than just saying, go home and listen or go home and use the metronome. You're actually doing it so that they're feeling it in their body and they know exactly what they're going to do when they get home, and they can do it on their own, right?
All right, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, I love that. And it's so fun to see them experience it, and then that's sort of where this empowerment idea came up too, because it's like they feel so much more confident, then they know, oh, that's what she meant, And so I think, it really shows on, and they feel more engaged and excited too. And I show them like, you've got this, So it's exciting. Oh, another thing I was going to say too is doing like a walk-up song. So we just recently went to an LA Dodgers game actually, and it was like we got to hear their Ohtani's walk-up song and all the different guys their walk-up, and it's like having if you're not familiar with that concept, like having a something that pumps you up when you're about to play, and then maybe putting that on like for like a little studio class performance practice. So it's like, okay, now it's your turn. Let's get up there and what's your walk-up song going to be? And then they walk up feeling strong, confident, pumped up to play, and then they do their piece. So that can be...
That's a really fun idea. I like that. So I want to talk a little bit about repertoire and choosing repertoire that is engaging for students. And when I was putting together the questions, I was thinking about one of my students. I would say she's about 12. And she's at the point where she can start to play some fun repertoire or supplemental repertoire, whatever you want to call it. But she just doesn't give me much to go off of. I'm like, well, what do you want to play? What do you like to listen to? What do you like? And she's like, I mean, I like Disney. I'm like, okay, I don't know. How do you choose engaging repertoire for your students? Do you have any advice for me?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I totally can relate to that. I definitely understand. Sometimes I find that either they don't have the vocabulary for it sometimes, or they just are not sure, what to say. And many of them, they're not really listening to full albums the way we have when we were their age. So it's really interesting to see, like, it's an interesting conundrum, right? Because they have the whole world of music accessible literally right at their fingertips, not like, like we didn't at that time, at that age. And yet they don't know what they like because there's just so much and also I noticed they're not really listening to music all the time, which is fascinating to me because I grew up listening. My parents had a really beautiful old record player, like an antique, something in the family, I guess. And it was constantly on. And so I was always hearing music in the house and classical. I was from Philadelphia originally. That's my hometown, or in the suburbs of Philadelphia. So I grew up in that area. So we heard the Philadelphia Orchestra and we heard, the Philadelphia Classical Radio Station was on all the time. And then my parents also had records. So they were playing classical records. And so this was just part of my upbringing every day. I was hearing music. And I find that a lot of times kids are not hearing music really. Like they might hear 30-second reels or something, but they're not hearing music all the time. Or they've got headphones on and they are hearing music all the time. But they might not have the vocabulary to describe what they want to play or even know what bands they like or what composers. So sometimes for a student like that, I'll just say to them, would you like a fast piece or a slow piece? So I just break it down really, really basic like that. And then I'll say, well, do you like a loud piece or a soft piece? And if they're still not really sure, I'll play some examples. So I have some examples right up on my shelf that I will just pull down. Like if they say they want to play a fast piece, depending on their age and level. Rhythm Machine by Lynn Freeman Olson is really a great piece. Do you know that one? Oh, it's really fun. And a lot of kids really like that one. And it's very patterned. And so, depending on the age and level, they could probably play that. Another one I really like is Turbocharged by Christopher Goldston. Turbocharged is also very patterned and exciting and very uplifting for them. And Solfeggetto by C.P.E. Bach. So I'll play that one. And depending, again, I just keep saying depending on age and level, but I know that's really things we have to consider. But so I'll have actual pieces that are right at my fingertips that I can just play for them. I have like a shelf above the piano that I have it organized the same way as the OU library was, which is so helpful. I mean, I have shelves all over with music, but the organization is like intermediate educational. So like the Goldston is in there and Lynn Freeman Olson is in there interspersed a little bit. And then intermediate classical or elementary sheets, elementary solo sheets or elementary supplemental, books like the Faber hits or Faber Disney. Those are really great ones too that I use to supplement. Fast or slow, I'll play those fast pieces for them. If they're inspired by one of those, we'll go with it. If they're not, I'll find something else. Like I always tell them too, you don't have to, I hope this is okay to say on air, but you don't have to play something that you don't like. Is that okay to say? I find that there's so much music. We have everything out there, and there's always an opportunity to play something that you really connect with. And that's my goal as a teacher, is to try to find them something that they are just all about. They're into it, they want to practice it. And then we talk about this. We'll say, there might be times where this amazing piece that you loved 5 weeks ago, you don't want to practice it, but you have to commit to the long haul, right? So like, we've chosen this is the piece that you're going to do. I mean, of course, there might be exceptions to that, but if they've made the commitment to it and it's just a tough spot, we'll get through it. We'll work through that. We'll work on some strategies to get through the hard part. But I'll make sure that we're finding music that they really connect with. When it comes to slow pieces, I really like to use the Nightingale from Book 3 of Piano Safari. They really like that one. It's like medium slow. I wouldn't say it's really slow, but very beautiful, very patterned as well. I'll use Chopin's Prelude in E minor, depending on the level. Or Deep River by Samuel Coleridge Taylor is also really beautiful. So I'll just try to find things that spark their interest and that I'll play it for them. So I also have all of William Chapman Nyaho's the music of African diaspora. So I'll play those too, and they'll find something that really appeals to all ages and levels. So we'll make sure that it's just a piece that gets them wanting to practice.
Yeah. And that's the key right there, is if they love it, they're going to want to learn it. And that's what I've noticed with the student I was talking about. When she likes the piece and connects to it, she practices it. And then, that's what we want, right?
I'm the one, right? Exactly. Like finding that gem, that really is appealing to them. So I think maybe even, I don't know if you'll see her again before you go to NCKP, but if there's a way to, just, or even send her some recordings of things and say, what do you think of this one? What do you think of this one? And then you might be able to find something even at the conference, I find so much in the exhibit halls.
Oh, I know. I love the exhibit hall.
Yeah, it's really, I should bring a whole other suitcase sometimes. But, I really stock up and just have stuff that's available. And I'm pretty open to the students' interests too. Like, I mean, when I was growing up, I would never express those things. Like, I would just play what I was told. But there was one piece in particular that I had to play that I totally thought it would be something different than it was. And I didn't like it. And I try to relate to that moment in my upbringing, and my family didn't like hearing it. So it was something like, that you just kind of look at those moments in your life, and I've made it through, I'm okay. But I think it's important to recognize that. And also to notice for a student, like to say they're a junior or maybe a sophomore or junior in high school, and they want to apply to a music program. I make sure they have, the wide variety of repertoire they need. And I will say, like, you might not like every era in equal measure. You might find yourself really drawn to certain composers or certain eras. And so we'll delve into that a little bit. Like, why does Bach sound so much different from Chopin? What are some of the key differences between these pieces, and how can we bring life to these different pieces and really connect with the composer as music was in their day? So that's fun. I really, and I make sure, like, we have 24 preludes and fugues that they can choose from, or 48, sorry. So 24 in book 1, 24 book 2. So, they don't have to choose just the one I gave them. In fact, I just had a student who was wants to learn a Bach prelude and fugue for preparation for different auditions and things like that. So I had them listen to all the 3 voice fugues. And because they're not really, they haven't played much in the Baroque era. So listen to all the 3 voice fugues, find your favorite subject. And so then they really take the time, listen to the subjects, play through them. We listened to them. We did that listening lesson where we found the piece, right? So they chose the F major one from book 1. And then we listened to different people playing it. And we listened specifically to articulation, because that's so important in Bach. And so that was enlightening for both of us. So like, oh, look what they did there. Oh, wow, they changed it over here. And then look what happened in this part. So I think it's like they might have to play something from every era, and they might not love every era equally. But I do think we can find a piece that they do connect with from every era. So
yeah, I remember in undergrad, I was required to play a piece from each era. And the 20th century, I was just like, oh, I don't want to play 20th century music. And so it became kind of a challenge to find a piece that I could connect to. And, I ended up finding something that sounded a little more romantic or, was tonal. But it was 20th century, and it stretched me in ways, that 20th century music will do. So yeah, I think no matter what the era or the style, you can find something. You just might have to dig a little deeper, search a little more.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think just playing little segments of things, letting them know, that there is something out there. So we need to find it, we will, so I think that can be really effective. And finding maybe lesser known composers too, that would really stretch them, that we're having so much access to all of that now. Like I learned so many new repertoire pieces when I go to NCKP, I'll find something from the 20th century that I didn't even know that composer existed. So that's really helpful. And I think too, more and more festivals and audition panels are becoming, thankfully, more open to more pieces and to exploring, all of the repertoire, not just a select few.
All right, we're getting to the end here, but I do want to ask you, I saw on your website, you have some pictures that it looks like your lessons are so fun. You have the lollipop drum, you have the giant music staff. What are you loving teaching and what are you loving using in your studio right now to add a little excitement, maybe for the young ones especially?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I brought some of that with me today because I know we're on a podcast and people won't see it, but I thought for at least for you, you get to see it, and other people, you can check out my website and go see it. But so I have the lollipop drum. We will do playbacks and, especially with the little ones, because you did say the little kids, right? So the little kids, we will take the little lollipop drum, and for Piano Safari, which I do use a lot for my method, they have those little cards with the rhythms. And so for the little kids, like an animal rhythm card, so they'll have like Charlie Chipmunk. So we'll have the little picture of Charlie Chipmunk, and then we'll have the 4 quarter notes on a card. So we'll do a matching game, and I'll put the animal card around the room on music stands or on the floor or something that gets them moving. So they love to do all these off-bench activities, and I do too. It's really fun to be, active and moving around the room. And so we'll find a rhythm, and then we'll tap it on the drum, and then I'll tap it back. Or maybe I'll tap a rhythm and have them run to the card and put the correct card on top. So we'll have a lot of different ways to do our rhythmic activities. Another thing I used is a paintbrush. So this paintbrush, you have to be careful, of course, because it does have some metal on it, but I have this long paintbrush with a very long, the brush part is long and so soft. So we'll just hold that and touch that in our hands, and then carefully play a glissando on the keys. It's so fun. And I'll hold the pedal down, and they'll just do this beautiful glissando, and they'll start to feel, the wrist motion. And I will talk to them at the very first moment I pull this paintbrush out. I ask the parents first, is this safe and okay? And then I'll say, what are the 2 things we have to remember about our paintbrush? It has to be clean and dry. So we talk about this. This is a piano paintbrush. This is not a paintbrush for other things. And we'll just use it in the studio, and it's always clean and dry. It's never been used with paint, but we get to paint a picture on the piano and really start to understand sound and listening and just beauty. And so, but I always make sure that this is age appropriate and child appropriate. Not every child at every age can handle a clean and dry paintbrush at the piano. So I make sure that that's a safe thing. Another thing I have is a little car, a toy car where you pull it back and then you let it go. And so this little toy car I put on the floor staff. And that floor staff has been an amazing investment. I got that over 20 years ago, and it stayed in great shape. It's lived in 7 states with me. We moved around a lot for school and for work, and now we're planted in New York, but we've lived a lot of places, and so has that floor staff. And it's really stayed in great shape. So we pull the car back and we let it fly. And where it lands, we have to name the note that it landed on. So that's really fun. I also have plastic letter names. So we'll put the plastic letter names on the notes. And then we'll also get the flashcards out and say, okay, this is the flashcard. Go find the plastic letter name and put it exactly where it's supposed to go. And then we'll go play that key on the piano. I always have to remember to say this, that when we're doing floor staff or off-bench stuff, we have to relate it to the piano. I think, or else it's a little bit too abstract. But so I'll play all of the like G, B, D, F, A, I'll play all of these line notes going up the staff. And then I'll have the student come over and I'll say, wow, look at all these line notes that I just put down. And I'll play all these notes for them. And then I'll say, can you tap on those notes in between? Like, what are these notes that I'm missing here? Like all these other white keys that are sticking up now. Oh, those are the space notes. Wow. And then we'll talk about that too. And so we'll go like line, 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 line. And then we see how the space notes are still sticking up. oh, what if we play all the space notes? Oh, look, the line notes are there. And then we do a lot of that. So we're always relating the staff to the piano itself. It's not always like, I'm not always waiting until they're in level 2 to do that. Like sometimes I'll do that even with the littlest ones, and we'll just say, oh, up a third, up a third, up a third, and find our way that way. I have 2 more things, if it's okay, I'll show you. One is, I got this at a little shop up in Warwick, which is like a really cute town near me, like 45 minutes. And it's a little unicorn on a disc, and there's a rainbow that is like just a little plastic thing. And I'll say, let's play a piece for the unicorn and see if they love it. And if they love it, if she loves it, she'll dance. And then if you get closer to it, it's like a magnet. And so, spoiler alert, it's a magnet. And some of the kids actually know. They're like, oh, it's just magnets. But some of them want to see if the unicorn liked what they played. So if we're having a hard time like getting them back to the piano after some off-bench stuff, we'll be like, oh, let's go get the unicorn and play something for her and see what she thinks. And then we'll put,
Oh, that's so funny. Can I take a picture of you holding it up? Maybe we can like put it on Instagram or something so people could see, because it's so cute.
It's such a silly little thing. But
okay, we'll use that to promote the episode or something.
Yeah, they're going to be like, what is she doing? So,
you have to listen to the entire episode to find out.
So we won't know what's like, we saved the best for last, right? But they will ask for it. I mean, even some of the older kids will ask for that. So that's fun. And then the last thing I was going to show you is I have these dice that I got, like music dice that just have, one that has, they're big and thick. So for people listening, they're giant, like the bigger than the palm of your hand. And they have sharps on one of them and flats on the other. And so what we'll actually do with these, I initially bought them thinking I would use them for naming keys. But we don't do that at all. I mean, we could and should. But what we actually use them for is we have a top 5 in our studio, sometimes a top 10, sometimes a top 7. It's random, but we will label our music. So like at the end of the semester or end of a segment of work together, we'll find what were your favorite pieces that you played in this book. And then we'll put a sticky note on them with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then they'll roll it. And we're like, okay, oh, look, we got 2. Okay, go play piece 2. And then they'll play. So I love that. It's a really nice way to review. And then if they get 6, it's a wild card. So they can pick any of them. And so if they want to, they're like, oh, wait, there are 12. I could label 12 of my pieces. So then we are like, sure, let's do it. Oh, wait, I could get more dice and label more. So it's really a way of saying, like, these are my favorite pieces. And for me as a teacher, it's the best way to review, make sure that they're really solid before we go on to the next level, because I don't want to be going to another level until I know that they've got it. So yeah, so those are some of the things that I wanted to share.
That's so fun. Elaina, I wish I could come and be a mouse in your piano lessons for a year or 2. I would learn so much. You gave us so much gold today.
Thank you.
Is there anything that you want to share with listeners? Can maybe share where they can find out more about you or your offerings or anything?
Oh, sure. They can go to my website. It's elainaburns.com. And so you can see, like, if you want to see some of those pictures, the lollipop drum or the floor staff. And so Elaina is spelled Elaina, Burns, BURNS.com. So you could go there. You can also email me if you'd like. I'd be happy to talk to you or get in touch, or see me at NCKP if you're there. My email is elainaburnsmusic@gmail.com. So a couple ways to get in touch. So, and I thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been really great to get to know you and to get to talk with you about all these great things. It's really fun to delve into all the exciting things about teaching together. So.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being here. I learned a lot, and I know our listeners are going to love this episode. So thank you, and I can't wait to meet you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, looking forward to meeting you. Thank you so much.
I think one of the biggest takeaways for me from this episode is that we should be showing our students exactly what we want them to do, and even be doing it in lessons rather than just telling them and sending them on their way, hoping they will be able to figure it out. I know that we often are running short on time in lessons, but this feels like a way to actually maximize our time, because they will be able to practice more effectively and listen more effectively if we're doing these skills with them in their lessons. I hope you never feel like it's a waste of time or like you shouldn't be having your students practice in their lessons. I think sometimes we hear that little voice in our head that says, Their parents aren't paying me to sit here while they practice. But sometimes I think that's the most valuable thing we can do to empower our students. That's the end of the show for this week, but I have a quick favor to ask you. If you enjoy the Top Music Piano podcast, would you mind leaving a quick review on whatever platform you are listening on? It will help other teachers find the podcast and know that it's worth listening to. I would really appreciate it. I'll be back next week talking with another fantastic piano teacher, so I will see you then. I'm Rachel Ehring, and you've been listening to the Top Music Piano podcast.
How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support, and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts, and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today.